Hey everybody, this is Peter Palmiotti, and today I am joined by Gerimi. Welcome, welcome.
Hey, good to see you, Peter. How you doing?
All right, all right. Um, let's see. So last week, approximately this time, we were on your channel, and we
Yes, and thank
decided
you.
to. Yeah, it was a really good chat. Lots of great info. People should definitely go and check it out. Um, that's one of the things I forgot to put the link below, but I put a lot of your links. If people don't know of you by now, they can go check your YouTube link out. It's got your website link, your Patreon, your Instagram, maybe something else. I forget.
My fans only.
Fans only.
I'm all over the internets. But yes,
All over.
thank you for inviting me over. It was a pleasure to have you over at my place. Now it's nice to come over, hang out at your place.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so we were just talking before we hit the live button about. I mentioned it on this channel before, but I'll mention it really quick again. Um, I'm pretty much traditional. I've been inking comics since 1991. For those that don't know, um, I usually use the standards, which is Winsor Newton Series 7. This one is number 3. I'm actually finding I want to get bigger numbers. As I get older, for some reason, the bigger numbers are the way to go. I think I just go too crazy with the detail if I have anything too thin. um, but I also use a quill. Hunt 102 is my standard. I know some people use a 107. I've played with a 107. It's just not my thing. 102 covers everything I need to do with a quill. But also, what we were mentioning earlier before you were listening, this pen I got not too long ago, acrylic painter. It's called by a company, Voiskle or something like that. It's Voiskle, and it's pretty much acrylic paint. You shake it, it has like a felt point. You bash it on a piece of paper and make sure it's nice and clean before you put it on some artwork, and it's excellent white. I've used it thus far mostly for stars. I did a couple of pieces with stars in it, and it's excellent at just blotting down a million stars. Something I used to do previously with Dr. Martin paint, which comes in a bottle, and you use a brush, and yeah, it's
The
not
old
nearly.
toothbrush method.
I've done that. I don't like messes, and that usually meant what do they call it when you cover up parts of the artwork?
A
You
frisket.
sort of want to focus on. Yeah, you sort of want to focus on a specific area, so you frisk it out. Everything else, that to me was always a pain. So I really enjoyed like Jim Stalin, if anybody knows, was like Marvel Comics cosmic artist, and his stars are really simple. And I don't think I ever saw any original artwork by Jim Stalin, but I always assumed that he did it by hand, like because they were just like so evenly spaced out starscape in background and stuff. But yeah, it's like, well, his looks good, and I love an elaborate star scene, But it's so much work, and it's like we have to do stuff for speed sometimes, and I figured I'll just do it by hand, and that will be my go-to when it comes to stars.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's sort of weird because I believe in working as quickly and efficiently as possible. But by the same token, I tend like not to use the splatter effect, whether it's like blood or starfields. That approach. It was one of those things where the first time anyone discovers it, it's like, oh, this is cool. Makes the page look so cool. But you start realizing after a while that it is a cool effect, but if there isn't any craft behind it, I don't really ever want to say there's cheating in combos because whatever you need to do to get the job done is what you should do. But I have often felt like sometimes, for me, I am constantly trying to improve my craft. And if there's things that don't improve my craft, I don't necessarily want to take the time saver. I only want to take the time saver once I am able to do it, I guess, the hard way, because I'm stubborn like that.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember back in the day, I'm originally from New York, and I used to run into Jay Lee at like a lot of the New York Comic Cons. And back then, what was his image book? Hell something?
Shock. Hell Shock. I remember Hell
Hell
Shock.
Shock. That's right. Hell Shock. I forget.
It was all splatters.
Yeah, it was all splatters. I think even his Namor stuff, which came after that, had some splatter stuff in it. And yeah, I mean, I liked it, but I always used to tell him, like, you should just cut out the splatter stuff entirely. Your work will really become much better. And he didn't listen to me at the moment, but he did change course, and his work looked phenomenal after that.
Well, I think that's something where if you do something long enough, you start seeing that, like, hey, there's different ways to I don't want to say skin a cat because we're both cat lovers, but but it's you just start saying, oh well, there's different ways to approach this and try different things. And it actually reminded me of something when you mentioned that you're thinking about going with bigger brushes more recently.
Yeah.
I think part of that is also just the skill that a creator develops over the years with using tools. Because my history of using a brush is that I was only able to successfully use a brush when I started working on this Western series. So, like in the past, I want to say, 8 years or so is when I started inking with a brush. Now, I attempted to ink with a brush every 2 or 3 years since I was 14. Every few years, I would just see another artist doing amazing brush work, and I would try to get a brush. And I think at one point I even got some nice sable brushes, saved up for that. But I would try for a month, 2 months, and I would just get frustrated with the results, and I would eventually give up. And it wasn't until years later that I realized I was doing convention sketches with a brush pen. I really liked the way that brush pens give you a nice thick and thin. And I was like, well, why is it that I can control this so well, but I have so much problem using a regular brush? And then I just looked at the brush pen and looked at the tip. And I saw that the tip is of most brush pens are between the size of a number 2 and a number 4. I mean, maybe if you get a particularly fat brush pen, you might get a number 6. But yeah, for the most part, brush pen tips are pretty small. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. It made sense because when I saw, for me, most people have told me to get like a number 4 or a number 6 Series 7 sable brush. And that was like the gold standard that most people were telling you with for inkers. You either get a Winsor & Newton or a Raphael. And so I was trying to work with larger brushes, and of course I was getting frustrated because just as a teenager and even into my 20s and 30s, I just didn't have the drawing control. Forget about brush control. I didn't have the drawing control to get a nice thick to thin and to create that kind of variety of line that a larger brush can give you. And but over the past few years, I was taking figure drawing classes and I was developing more control, and B, I switched. Instead of trying to use large brushes, I just said if I need to make tiny lines, I'll use a 00. If I need to use regular lines, I'll use a 0. And if I need to do like my holding lines or anything that's going to be a little bit of a chunkier line, I'll use a 2 and then another larger brush for filling in blacks. And once I switched to that, I realized, oh, and now as I've been inking with a brush for a few years now, I'm able to do more with a larger brush. But I realized that for me, what I felt was holding me back was I was trying to do too much, but I didn't have a level of control. And for you, as many years as you've been inking, of course you've got that control. So, it makes sense for you to say, I want to go even bigger, because then you can cover more territory and not noodle, but you can still crank out those tiny lines when you need to. And then, you can always, you'll have your smaller brushes there and your crow quills for when you need them.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah, it's. I almost want to go grab something. So tell people about your book. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, I will tell people about my book. My book is, oddly enough, I've got one next to my drawing table here. But my comic book is called Morning Star, and it is. Move my page so I don't get ink on it. It's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. So the idea is, at the dawn of creation, the universe is this raw, untamed frontier. It's a Wild West. There's 7 archangels that are like the Magnificent Seven, and Lucifer, he actually begins the story as the leader of these archangels. He's actually the marshal of heaven. Because he wasn't created to be evil. He's supposed to be the brightest of all the angels. He was supposed to be perfect. So what went wrong? That's the story I'm telling. We all know how Lucifer ends up. I'm showing the story of how he got there. Except with guns and horses. So that's my my comic Morning Star. And it's available on my my Amazon store. It's amazon.jerimi.net. It's that's Gerimi. Unconventional spelling for Jeremy. Simple name, weird spelling. I think my folks knew I was going to be artsy. But that's my comic. That trade has issues 1 through 4. I am working on issue 8, which is the final double-sized issue as we speak here.
Yes. Awesome. Yes, indeed. So, okay, this is... I'll probably switch up the camera in just for a second. This... hopefully I won't knock anything down. Okay, so this is a story I inked. This is over blue lines, because I got digital files of the pencils. I don't know. The penciler was... he might be Filipino. I'm not sure. MM comes to mind. Other than that, I have no clue. But this was for Critias, who created this character. He's called Detective Dead. This is an extra bonus for those that pledge to his campaign. And there's a whole story to that. Like he had some life things go on, and he actually refunded everybody, but he's still working on the book, and he will print it and give it to everybody who pledged. But yeah, this is either in the back of the book or as an extra little mini comic or something or another. But it's Detective Dead versus Bigfoot Bill. And actually, this is the last page. So do I have this in the back? Yeah, this is backwards. So let me fix that. But yeah, this is a story I was really proud of. Don't know when it's going to see the light of day. But I'm trying to get more into a kick of selling artwork and posting it around. And, you know, I did a video on my Facebook showing off these pages, but you know what? I'm going to show them here because
Show them again. Always be
show 'em
selling.
again. Always be selling. So this is the first page. And let's see. Maybe I'll turn this off a second. So make it smaller. That's a little small. Okay, whatever. All right, so yeah, this is the first page, and I used a lot of brush, and there's some quill work. You can pretty much tell what's what, but just really happy. Like I really spent a lot of time. This is a relatively simple page, and even this straightforward and simple to a certain extent, but as we go further, it gets a little busier. And I just really loved his artwork. I don't normally ink special effects like sound effects. He had a bunch, so I felt compelled. There's one or two I left out, but something like this panel took me a long time because I'm trying to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. It's like so many lines going on. But it's always fun. It's like I just really loved his hatching. He's just like throwing lines everywhere, and I just like really dug in and had a blast with it.
It looks really kinetic and full of energy.
Yeah, and it's big. Oh, so Bigfoot Bill. This character is Doug Tenniel's character, so it's sort of a crossover short story with both the characters.
Nice.
And it's just gorgeous stuff. And yeah, it's like if you're watching this and you like what you see, and if you're interested in buying it, you could hit me up on Messenger. It's the easiest way. I will throw you scans so you can look at it completely. This is, again, I'll say it's inked over blue line, but it's like I added my nuances to it and my patented Palmiotti twists.
Do original art collectors have a problem with inks over blue lines? Because I mean, that's how most comics are done these days.
Well, some, because not everything is inked over blue line. Sometimes, like some people are like, still doing it the old-fashioned way. Like with retro, 95%, 96% is me inking over pencils. There were a couple of pages lost when he mailed them to me, so he made blue lines of those. But some people don't care. Everything, like the penciler sends all the files to the inker and keeps the pencils himself to sell or just keep or whatever. Publishers don't care. At the end of the day, it looks the same. You just drop out the blue and it's pure inks. But yeah, it's like these pages were a hell of a lot of fun. Took a hell of a lot of time. But it's the most recent thing I'm most proud of. I ink a lot of random stuff, and a lot of it just becomes jobs just to keep myself busy. But this was a lot of fun. And like I said, I added a lot of my own nuances. Some of the lettering, like he put in, I felt like, okay, a colorist needs to go in and do those lettering because it will just, cover up the artwork that's already there. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's just a lot of insane line work.
That scarecrow looking guy
and
looks badass.
yeah, that's a original villain he created just for this story. I think it's Mr. Halloween or some variation thereof. He has these little, I guess, pumpkin guys or whatever they are.
It's a good character name.
That's crushing his face. But yeah, it's like insane artwork. Lots of fun. I don't know if he stole this from somewhere, but there's such beauty to that. Just like simple, his coat is wrapping around the other guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like a solid image there. Really like that. And here's where you can, you can really do a lot of splatter here. I just kept it simple. Obviously, I know it's going to be colored, so some things open for the colors to go crazy with. And then this is the last page. And this took me a long time because he had a lot of crazy line work here.
Mm-hmm.
Where
The
I was like,
background is detailed.
yeah, it's like, and I added more to the tree because it kind of was rushed a little bit. I, connected it a bit. But just had a whole lot of fun. And I'm only selling these like 100 a page, which is cheap.
That's a bargain.
It's like I figured that is a bargain. I figured if it was published by now, I might have been asking for top dollar, but I figured, what the hell, I do need some more money coming in, and I enjoyed it, everything on there, but let some collector enjoy it now.
Exactly. I mean, I've got some pages that I've been holding on to, but I'm actually thinking, like, I'm running out of space, and
Yeah.
it's just money sitting in a box.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I know someday I'll be moving out of here, and I want to start working towards trimming down my studio, which means getting rid of a lot of artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means pricing them lower, then so be it. It's like I'd rather have the cash in my bank account or pay off some bills than this taking up more and more space. It's like I got at least 500 pages of artwork. I don't even know.
It's funny. I had a weird idea, and I'm not even sure if people will react positively or negatively to it. But once I finish this comic, I was going to shift into a period of doing just some prints and commissions for a little while, just to branch out and do some single images. Mainly just because of the time it takes to finish a comic. I'm like, I don't produce finished work at the pace I would like to. So I thought, well, let me just try this for a little bit. And one of the things I was thinking was to draw and paint my prints digitally, and then if the prints sell well, then to go and make a painting of that print. So make the original afterwards. And obviously I'm not trying to replicate the digital one for one, because I mean that would be an ass backwards approach. But the idea of, almost like using the print, which I could make the digital art faster, and I don't want to necessarily invest the time in making an original for an image that may not necessarily sell. Whereas if I knock out a digital piece, I make it, I capture the essence, I can put it out there, see if people like it, and then if they do, I'm like, all right, I'll take the time to do a detailed ink drawing or a detailed, detailed acrylic painting, just because I can knock out the digital so much faster. But I don't know whether people would be like,
Yeah.
do they want an original if the original is coming after the concept, after the idea is published?
Well, you've done a lot of like prints, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's your experience with
Well, what's interesting for
the
me
audience in
is,
regards to them? Do they just like eyelash spectrum? They say nothing. It's like, do you get feedback?
well, I do get feedback. When I share particular images online and people will tell me, oh, I do want this, or I don't like that one. Like I had a piece that I was planning to do at last year's WonderCon before coronavirus hit, and I had been sharing my work in progress online, even though I should have been working on Morningstar. I think I needed a breather before I dove into this final issue. And so it was a series of Alice in Wonderland horror themed prints. So it was like Pennywise from It, as like the White Rabbit and the Mad Hatter and the Queen of Hearts and such. And there was a particular person who was on my mailing list and had been following me, and they said, "Are you going to have these for sale at WonderCon?" I said, "Hell yeah." And so when WonderCon got canceled due to COVID, she was like, she just emailed me and was like, "Are you gonna put these for sale?" And I put them on sale on my site, and sure enough, as soon as they went up, she bought one. So I do get feedback from people, and I have this weird thing where, you know, I'm not making my full time living from doing comics, but when I do conventions, right, I find that 2/3 of my total sales are comic books, and 1/3 are the art prints. So I sell enough prints that it's worth it for me to keep doing it. But I mean, most of the time, that 80/20 rule. They say 80% of your sales comes from 20% of your actual product line. In this case, I couldn't say, oh well, I should focus more on prints than I should on comics, because I was still selling more of comics. But that said, it takes me so long to do them. And when you look at how many prints you can do in the time you can do one comic book, I thought that's part of what I want to try when I finish Morningstar, is I want to shift gears and experiment with a year where I'm just cranking out a bunch of prints and maybe put on an art book, and see how that translates into, like, if I can make a lot more money simply because I'm able to produce them quicker. And it's not necessarily that I'm ever going to stop making comics, but I may say, all right, when I make comics and publish comics, I'm doing it for me. And maybe if the prints, because I can turn them around so quickly, I can, do stuff that's, maybe if a particular TV show that I like that's really popular, like for instance, if I weren't working on Morningstar right now, I'd probably be doing some Lovecraft Country pieces, because that's a new show on HBO. That's a horror themed show that I really dig. So maybe I'd do some fan art of that and make some prints, or that kind of thing. Like I haven't watched Raised by Wolves, that Ridley Scott series, but a lot of people are talking about that, and that's another thing. It's just trying different stuff, because what I've been doing up till now is I make comics, they find an audience, and they do sell. They just don't sell in large enough numbers that I could do it full time. So I thought, I'm not abandoning comics. I just want to try some different stuff and see what works out.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's like right now I want to do more of my own artwork, and this is a piece I started recently.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. You see, let's see. There you go.
The Eddie Van Halen piece?
Yeah, he passed away recently.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of him, and yeah, so I'm going to be finishing inks on that, and then offer that up for sale. But yeah, it's like I have the bad habit of starting and stopping. Like I just got to stick with it. Like make my own artwork. Like I don't know why I keep like going there and then pushing away from it. But You know, I just gotta stick with it because, you know, like you said, like, you know, you do anything on a regular basis, you get better at it. You know, I posted that around on Facebook in different groups and whatnot, and I got a lot of likes. I got a few people who said, you know, maybe you shouldn't post pencils, um, you know, and post a finished piece, and then you know, it's like, well, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, um, but you know, it's like I have enough artwork posted on my Facebook. If you're really curious about what finishes look like, then go check that out. Somebody else said, "Oh, it looks nothing like Eddie Van Halen." And I'm like, yeah, I kind of disagree, but okay, whatever. Um, you know, you're gonna get your remarks and opinions and whatnot. It's like art is all relative anyway.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, it's funny in
You
terms
know,
of
it's
the.
like good.
I was gonna say, in terms of the posting pencils versus originals, most of what I post is work in progress. But the reason for that is because, like as I was saying earlier, it takes me so damn long to finish a comic that if I only posted finished art, you would just see like, you know, 20 pages drop once a year. That's all you'd see from me. It's just, you know, the rest of the time it's the
Yeah,
sketching and the layouts and the digital color and all the process stuff. So I show all of those things because I would have nothing else to show. And the only way I would have more finished pieces to show would be if I stopped working on comics and did standalone pieces instead of finishing the comics, which is what I'm going to try
yeah,
when I finish this issue. So, I mean, I think that there's something to it. I mean, there are people who I see who they have Instagram feeds, and you see the beautiful colors and the finished work, and it looks buttery, and I'm jealous. But at the same time, it's like, you know, comic books are a monkey on my back. That dragon has sunk its teeth deep into me, and you know, I can't shake that monkey.
yeah. I mean, it's a common theme when it comes to comics, and you know, like creators talking about it. That it takes them forever, and you know, it's like, well, we got life, we got, you know, we have to make a
People
living.
and yeah.
Yeah. And sort of like your personal projects are on the side a lot of the time, and you don't give them a main focus, so they do tend to take a while to put together. Um, and I've heard through a lot of people, like they say, you know, well, I can only do one issue a year. Well, you know, do one issue a year. If that's how long it takes you, then do that and stick with the book. You know, um, it's like I know myself. It's like this project's taking me way longer than I originally intended. Um, but you know, at the same time, it's like I'll be very proud when it comes out, and you know, and then I'll work harder to make the next one take a lot less time, and so on and so on. You know, I intend for this to be an ongoing series,
Mm-hmm.
so I would like to get, you know, a couple of issues out per year. Um, you know, this is my test drive. The next issue will be me doing a full blown comic as penciler, artist, writer.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be an adventure. But by 2 and 3, I'll be able to truly gauge, you know, this is how long it really takes, and start measuring things, and taking a scientific look at it, and seeing where I can, you know, chop some time off at that point.
You know, speaking of chopping some time off, I saw something drop on the internet today, and I get the feeling it is going to be real controversial within the comic book community.
Uh-oh. What's that?
So Adobe has this had a presentation where they were showing off some of the new offerings they're having in the coming year, and they have this new software called Comic Blast. And I don't know, have you seen it yet?
I might have seen an ad for it, but I didn't click on it. So, did you look at it?
All it is I didn't see an ad, but if you do a search for Comic Blast on YouTube, they have like this 5-minute presentation that Adobe made at an event. And what it is a software that automates a large chunk of the comic book creation process. And
in what way?
Oh God, you're gonna love this. Now, just okay. So let's say you write a comic book script, and you just have your you got your page numbers, and you got your panel numbers, and you got your dialogue. You write your script, you do all that, and let's say that you create tags for each character's dialogue, so you know which one goes, what dialogue goes with what character. You go ahead and you drop your formatted script into the software, and then what it does is it looks like, how many pages is your script? Is it a 8-page story? Is it a 12-page story? It creates 12 comic book sized pages. Then it creates panels for those pages. Then it creates word balloons with tails filling in those pages. So that you basically get like what an inker would have handed Jack Kirby, or like a Bronze Age or a Silver Age artist, where you would have gotten your ruled panels and your word balloons in there. It creates that automatically. That's step one. That's the first thing it does. Now, it has handlebars on it so that you can just drag and drop and adjust the panels. So if you decide, it laid out a 6-panel page for me, but it's a simple grid, and I really want like a large panel, taking up the top half, and then like 5 tiny ass panels at the bottom. So you can drag it around and slide it to do it whatever you want. I presume that you can merge and break apart panels in case you decide you want to adjust it. But that's the first thing it does. Then you can go in and let's say that you've scanned in your thumbnails. You can drop in your thumbnails, and it will take them. Actually, it would have to be tighter than thumbnails. Let's say that they're pencils that are maybe not as tight as like, an image comic, but like it's not as tight as like a 90s image comic, but tighter than layouts. So, something like Paul Pope tight. But you drop your pencils in there, and it will do rough digital inks for you. I know that right there. I was like, ugh. And then you can tell it to auto color your entire issue for you. And I immediately went to Twitter to look at the responses, because when you watch the video, you look at it, and it looks like kind of the pow bam stuff that you see that people that aren't comic creators make when they aren't comic creators. And you look at it and you're like, okay, this is not horrible. I've seen indie comics that were published that look at this quality of level, and I'm like, okay, I can see someone finding this. And let's say that you're somebody with limited means, and you're a writer, and you hire somebody to do the letters, and you just can't necessarily afford to have someone else to do the rest of things. The quote-unquote digital refinement of it to make it kind of like inking, that to me was a no-go. I mean, it didn't look like what I feel like finished comic art it didn't look like comic art by somebody who really cares about comics would make.
Right.
But then again, I've only seen that one example. I would have to, because I remember this way. My first instinct was it's not something that I necessarily would want to use, but I looked at it and I thought the audience for this is not the professional comic book maker. The audience for this are people who look at comics, are fans of comics, and want to create their own comic, but don't necessarily have the years and years of skill set it comes into making it. And it's sort of like the like when you see those apps where they take a photo of you and they make a cartoon version of you. It's like that.
Right.
So I'm not saying that there's no place where this exists, but that said, I did see some creators who looked at this. I only saw like one or two posts on Twitter that actually looked at it from the positive, in the sense of, like, let's say that you're a full-time letterer, and you use this software to very rapidly knock out all of your lettering. And then you just go in page by page, right. And as opposed to lettering each page by hand, and let's say that it maybe takes you 30 minutes to letter a page, you come in and you just tweak a page in 5 minutes. And from that standpoint, I can see that maybe this isn't like... I can see how that would be useful to that person. But I also think about all of the skilled letterers and comic creators in the industry who are just like, no, that's... I mean, because when you look at it, it looks like the type of lettering that someone who is not a experienced letterer would make. I mean, the word balloons look like word balloons. The spacing between the outside of the balloon and the text inside is larger than it should be. Like, if you look at it, you're like, no, that's too big. But it's also one of those things where, one, they probably have thick settings that you can adjust the tolerances of it, and two, it's made to be customized and adjusted. So I can see a world... I can literally see a Civil War in comics. We're already divided enough as it is. But I can see a Civil War in comics starting over this software. Because some people are looking at... Like, I can see a ton of indie writers saying, oh my god, this is the godsend. I'm going to run a Kickstarter every month now because I'm going to be able to publish comics monthly. I can see a lot of experienced, very skilled creators who spent, many years building up the tools it takes to make comics. Look at this and saying, it all looks like hack work. I hate this thing. It's like Fiverr for comic book creation. My reaction when I saw it was that the comic professional is not the audience for this. My reaction personally was, this is for anyone who loves Marvel movies and loves the superhero movies but doesn't read comics, and then says, I would like to make a comic, and then they go and start getting into comics, trying to make their own, which in my mind, I don't think that unto itself is a bad thing, because I think if you aspire to make comics and you're not necessarily reading them right now, I feel like it would encourage you to read more, to understand, to look and compare and see what other people are doing and how they're doing it. Because having the tools to automate some of the steps of comics does not make you a storyteller. Even if you look at just the thing of dropping your script into a software that automates the word balloons, if it did nothing else, if it just lettered your comic for you, it doesn't make you a good writer. You have to still be a good writer. And then you still have to have the design sense to go around and properly adjust the word balloons so that they look right, so that they're in the proper order, that they're in a place so that it will lead the eye around the page attractively, all the things that letterers actually do. It doesn't make you a designer. So it looked to me like a tool that's what I thought was really weird about it. Because I'm like, why would Adobe go out of their way to create a software for people that are not likely to use it? Because anyone who actually is... Most of the people I would imagine, who are making comics full-time, or spend anybody who is publishing comics that people are actually buying, is probably already entrenched in doing doing this craft in a more traditional way. Now that also might
Yeah.
be short-sighted in my mind, in the sense that I was talking it over with a buddy of mine online, the one who sent me the link, and I was saying, this could be what the iPhone was to photographers, because it used to be that making professional looking photography was expensive, and it's a skill set to take high quality photos that look good. But now with the iPhone, it might not give you the compositional eye to be a good photographer, but it's a lot easier to get good lighting, and and add some filters to make a photo look closer to professional. Um,
Right.
and then there's lots of photographers who simply just added an iPhone as just another tool in their arsenal. For some jobs, maybe they're using a digital SLR camera. For some pictures, they're using a traditional, reflex lens camera. Um, you know, and then for some things they'll use phone. Just it's just a different tool. But some people found ways to make it work in spite of iPhones existing. Some photographers were driven out of business. Some photographers said it's not about the tool I'm using, it's about the type of content I'm shooting, or the way I compose them, which again comes back to comic creators, where it's not about the tool. There's some comic creators, I'm sure, who already have the traditional skill set and look at this as a way to automate all of the things that they want to get out of the way and let them just focus on storytelling. So I see this as a potentially, no tool is good or bad. It's really a matter of how you use it. But I could see it as being something that's very
Yeah.
divisive, particularly in that any tool that costs creators their job, I immediately look at that with side eye. So the problem is, on one hand, I don't like that aspect of it. On the other hand, if this is another thing that's going to come through and just people are going to jump on board with it, it's a matter of, well, how do I get in front of this? In terms of either how do I make sure that what I am creating is bulletproof to this and is unique, and can't just, what I do as a creator can't just be farmed out or done by this software. Or, even though I don't necessarily want to put other creators out of business, if I do need to use it, what are ways in which I can use it so that I could start making comics even faster? If somebody just gave me a book, like, I will tell you that I have a great affection for the craft of lettering. I don't think that I am a great letterer, but I do letter my own comics. But I would say that lettering is probably the one thing that I would farm out if I were going to farm out anything. But working in graphic design, I spend a lot. I get to know Illustrator really well, so I know it well enough that I feel like I can make some decent lettering. Maybe what if there were ways in which I could use that tool and have it just make my personal work faster and easier? Would I be a fool for not using it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's not black and white. It's not clear cut. My first instinct is that it's bad. My second instinct is there might be a good side. My third instinct is it might be bad, but I might need to confront it and learn how to use it, something bad, so that at least I survive and I'm productive beyond that. Which, now I'm just repeating myself. But I would really, when you have a chance to watch it, I would love for you to do a video at some point where you discuss your reaction to it, because
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what other creators think about this.
Right. I think I already made up my mind. I'm going to use it exclusively and make all my comics. Yeah, I mean, without seeing anything yet, I can't make a full assumption. But I mean, if it makes it easier to sort of even just lay out your lettering and sort of set up your panels, that's definitely a plus. And if you're working digitally, I could see that being an advantage. Even somebody traditional like me, I could at least maybe print out blue line of just the panels themselves with the lettering already on it. You know, just like in the old days where the letterers used to hand letter onto the page. You know, like the actual drawings are penciled and inked, but the lettering was there. You know, just printed out.
You know what's funny is I actually considered doing that because the page I'm inking right now, I have the letters for it, and you know this is blue lined. I didn't go in here and rule these. I print out my blue lines, but I print them with the black panel borders, just because it saves me the time of having to rule them out on the page. That said, I considered printing my letters on them too, so that my finished artwork would be lettered. And the reason why I opted not to is because when I scan them back in, the lettering isn't as crisp. I mean, even if I scan it at high res, I could scan it bitmap the way that when people first start doing digital pre-press, you know, they would do that. But for me, the thing was, I found that just scanning in my finished ink artwork and dropping the digital letters back over the finished file looked better than scanning in the finished artwork with lettering on it at like a 600 or a 1200 DPI. So I ended up opting not to do that, but that is something that I definitely considered.
Well, you know, I think it will have an effect on the industry. I know there are a lot of those people that will take something like this and make 1,000 comics. You know, whether they're good or not, time will tell. But you know, it's like people have used like 3D model posers and just like posed their figures and made a comic out of that. And if you look at a lot of them are crap, but some are actually very good. But to me, there's no personal real draw. I almost rather see an animated movie with, you know, posable figures and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, what company was it? Was it that did it?
Oh, it's Adobe.
Adobe?
The company that makes Photoshop and
Adobe.
Illustrator. Yeah.
So is that like a monthly subscription kind of deal, AO?
Well, I presume that it would be, but that said, they have a program for people that design web and app interfaces called Adobe XD, and that one is actually free to use, kind of like how that simple stripped down version of Photoshop was. So
Right.
I don't know for sure, and that's again the interesting thing, because comic creation to me is such a niche, you know, that it's a small industry, and the people that do it, you know, work very hard to get the skills to be able to do it. So it seems so weird to me. Plus the fact is, as much as we would love, I don't think that comic books are dying. I'm not saying that, but I definitely feel that the readership of comic books in general is not as high as anyone in the industry would like it. That I think we can all agree on. And it seemed weird to me that they would make a software for an industry that has such a niche readership, which is why I was thinking that the user, the audience for that is not the current professional comic creator. It doesn't mean that creators won't take advantage of that, but it seems to me that it is the fan of pop culture. I think that might be the audience. There's definitely all the people who go to comic conventions but don't necessarily read comics. I think that's the audience. The audience is for them, so they're like, well, I don't read comics, but I want to make one.
Yeah. I know like a lot of sort of comic stuff is used in advertising. You know, like somebody will put together a fake comic as an ad. You know, like it's not exclusively for comics. They can use it elsewhere, but time will tell. I mean, it's like I know a lot of my friends who use Photoshop refuse to sign up for the subscription and have just an old version on disk that they still use and are good to go. Um, so if it's part of a subscription model, I don't know how many people are going to sign up tomorrow, but
Mhm.
you know, I'm sure it will benefit those who decide to use it. Um, I'm not going to commit to it. I mean, I got Manga Studio, Clip Paint,
Yes.
whatever.
Okay. Now, see, that's actually a great example. What this software is Manga Studio with a lot more automation.
Yeah,
That's a great way to describe it.
and I know in Manga Studio, I've only used it a little bit, but it's a pain in the ass to do like word balloons with text in it.
Mhm. Which, I mean, well, that's what you do. That's what word balloons are for.
Yeah. So, but I know there are definitely people that use it and pass it off as professional comics.
Mhm. Well, I mean, there's people I know
But
who use Manga Studio, and they I know people who use it for inking and doing digital inks, and it's like Marvel DC books.
yeah,
So, and
yeah,
it
but
looks
it
good.
really took years though. Like when the first digital inker appeared, and
Hmm.
now is a big difference. And
Yes.
if you're not skilled, you know, just using whatever program to ink digitally isn't going to help you. You know,
No.
um, it took a lot of the professional inkers years to um, really work with the programs and make it look different than everybody. And, it's like you could tell when digital inking started because everybody's inks looked the same. Everything was very linear and almost too thick and just kind of blocky looking.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a vast difference now. You can't tell the difference by somebody who's truly skilled at digital inking as opposed to traditional inks. And it's like I I'm not going to change in the big scheme of things because I love traditional inking too much.
Hmm.
If it works for other people, it works for other people. I'm not going to get I'm not going to lose my job because frankly, I'm working towards being my own boss, like
You
just
can't
doing my
fire
own books.
yourself. Yeah.
You can't find me. But you know, if that means eventually like the competition using these programs and whatever think those books look better than mine, then I might consider. But
Hmm.
maybe I'll just go into painting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, see the difference that see what is that as much as I think we talked about this when you were on my channel, just the idea that when I see people bitching about a certain artist or a certain comic and just how bad the artwork looks, and I'm like, look, you have no idea how hard it was for that creator to make that particular issue, and you have no idea if there were. I mean, on a day when everything works out great, and you're firing on all cylinders, it's incredibly hard to make a comic. And the idea of how
Yeah,
hard it is that you don't know like what if there were deadline changes, if there were technical issues, if there were rewrites, if there were emergencies in their personal life, all of the things that might screw up the schedule or make an artist have to create work faster than they would like to, or any number of technical challenges. Um, the people who bitch about that, I can't imagine that they would be accepting of the artwork. Like I looked at it, and again, it's not that it was a horrible comic. What I saw there looked like it looked like what I would consider a mediocre comic. And I have a hard time even saying that because my whole thing in my channel, my whole approach in art is that I don't talk down on other creators and their work. I feel like no one should not create just because their art isn't necessarily where they would like it to be, because my art isn't where I would like it to be. So I'm not speaking from it in terms of I'm criticizing that comic and the person who created it. I'm talking about how I think mainstream comic book fans would look at that artwork, and I think comparing the artwork that I saw there to what's in most comic books, it would be considered a mediocre book.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's why, and again, that comes to why I don't think that, I think that the audience for that is not the audience of the general comic creator, not that we couldn't find uses for it. So we'll have to see, but it just, I look forward to hearing what you think after you watch it.
Yeah, I'll check it out and give you my review. I definitely know, like, if it's something that's useful to a lot of people and it succeeds, then they'll do version 2.0 and so on, and it will only get better.
Yeah.
But if everybody looks at it and says, that really doesn't do what I need it to do, or, hey, that's a great function, let me email Clip Paint Studio to see if they'll include that in their next version.
Well, what's interesting is, let's say that we fast forward 10 years, and through, machine learning and iterations and 2 or 3 versions of it, now you get that app, it comes out, and you write an outline for what you want, and then you run your script through the Bendis filter or the Alan Moore filter, and it gives you some great dialogue. It does, like, word recommendations based on on a couple of different styles of writer. And then you're like, all right, give me some artwork. Give me some Brian Stelfreeze artwork here. And he gives you some Stelfreeze. It's like, that's slick, but I want some more hatching. Give me a Travis Charest flip. It's like, all right, no, okay, I like the Travis. Let's go with the Travis. Yeah, maybe I'll split the book. Maybe some scenes will be Stelfreeze, some scenes will be Travis. But you do it, and it can actually render it in their styles based on a script based on an outline that you made for a book. You didn't even really write the script, and you get a finished comic that looks as if one of the creators I mentioned had a studio assistant who did backgrounds for them, and that person came in and did it. So it didn't look necessarily like theirs, but it looked, better than a lot of indie books look right now. Let's say that you had an app that I'm reaching out here. Here's the thing I'm saying is, let's say there's a software that can just make comics and it looks like the creators you want it to look like. Then the market is flooded with a bunch of people that are making work that may look professional and it may even read professional, but in the end, it's not going to stop people who actually get pleasure from the actual making of the comics. Because the only reason why I sell, it's not that I believe that my comics are created in a vacuum and I don't want an audience, but for me, I love the creation of comics so much that I want to spend more time doing it. And for me, the idea of selling my comics and making them profitable is that the more profitable they are, the more I can make more comics. I think that it's not going to destroy the artisanal spirit of comic creation. The craft, much like you, that you're always going to be a traditional inker, that there's a reason for that. It's because the emotional connection you have when your brush connects with the board is something that cannot be satisfied by clicking buttons.
Yeah. I mean, there are already enough programs out there, 3D modelers, figure whatever they're called, programs.
Posers.
There's posers, like there's special effects apps that you can make photos look like paintings.
Mm-hmm.
um if you just combine all the programs out there, you could do amazing comics. You
Yeah.
don't need anything more. you know and there's a lot of them for free online. um but yeah, I mean, it's like, do you make a movie with a Super 8 camera, or do you use your phone, or do
Mm-hmm.
you know do claymation, or it's like,
Yeah.
however you create, and just make it great. If you use a program like this new one, you know you're going to have to work hard to make it not look like 1,000 of the other comics coming out from the same program.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a reason why
You
you
know,
don't see lens flare in comics that much anymore.
aw.
I mean, there was a time when, like, the first thing they teach you how to create a new file. The second they teach you how to create a lens flare. But eventually you grow out of that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you remember when there was the first computer coloring?
Oh yeah, like the like pre Wildstorm Malibu Comics digital coloring.
Yeah, well, I mean, even like the early days of Wildstorm,
Mm-hmm.
and everything, the colorists at that time were doing a lot of, like, they would take a brick pattern, and every brick in the background would just be that brick pattern.
And it was super
There
sharp
would
and
be
clear. There was
and there would be
no blurring. Yeah.
no, um, anything metal would be this metallic, pattern that they would use. And I mean, it looked really gaudy and awful. And yeah, it like it was counterproductive to whatever art was going on. it was bad. It was so bad. It's like those are the two things that stand out in my mind. But there was also so many other faux pas. Just, yeah, like any swords or guns, I remember just looking really, really horrible because they would just use this pattern and not like, they weren't coloring, they were just like throwing. It was almost like the early days of MySpace. It just became worse and worse, like to
It was
go
like
to
photo
somebody's
bashing.
page. Yeah.
Mhm. But poorly done photo bashing, because photo bashing can actually be an art unto itself if you know how to properly use textures and photos, and you're actually still composing an image. But it was, but that was people also learning what the tools were capable of, and the usage of the software evolved.
Yeah. I mean, everything's that to a certain extent. Everything's a learning experience, but like much like the 70s, back in the 70s when everybody had long hair, and now, you don't see that anymore, or a lot of it.
Except in retro.
Except in retro, I bring it all back. But yeah, it's like, I will check it out, and I will give a review, my own opinion, from a traditional's point of view. I'm sure it will have some uses for some people.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of that does sound like fun and potentially useful.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw that like I said, I went through a range of emotions. First negative,
Mm,
then trying to look on the bright side, then looking at, you know, it it could be an evolution in process, but it still can be a painful evolution. We'll have to see.
well, well, it's all been painful.
Yeah.
I come from a different time, and I wish like a lot of things never changed, but that's not reality. It's like everything changes. Like if you like music back in the 70s, it's not that anymore. Like we've
Hmm.
gone through so many variations and industry upsets, movies and everything, TV, and now we got streaming services, which is something new.
Hmm.
um but at the end of the day, we want great stories and great comics from great creators who are passionate about what they do. And you know I don't care what they use. I do have my tastes. It's like I love comics traditionally, but if somebody like Rich Corbin comes around and does paint a painted comic, um, that is really well done, I'll say, you know what? Typically, I just pick up traditional looking comics, but this is amazing. I want this too.
Yeah. And see that again, the fact that you mentioned Richard Corbin, I think there's a difference. I think that there's someone who has spent a lifetime developing the craft of making comics can come to any tool and look at it and be like, oh, I can find ways to bring what I do to this. And I think there's also room for, let's say, a kid who has only known digital art, and the same way that, like, when your parents can't figure out how to work the VCR, the kid can come in and they understand the
Mhm.
technology and they just make it do stuff that like runs circles around what they did. I think that there's also room for a younger generation to come in, find a new tool, and say, I see the potential in this, and I can tweak this and freak this to make some awesome stuff. Um, I think
Yeah,
that with anything, it's that awkward middle that is problematic.
yeah. I always thought, even when I was younger, that progress is a good thing, but at the same time,
Mm.
don't lose what's great of the past.
Yeah,
So,
very very true. I agree.
so we've gone over an hour, and
Yes, and
so I'll get to the sleep before midnight.
that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, and again, I apologize for keeping you up so late last time.
Oh, no, no problem.
I just got
No
to brag on the
problem.
internet. I got to brag on the internet that I kept Peter Palmiotti up all night. Bragging rights.
Well, I don't mind doing long streams, but you know, we'll have plenty of opportunities in the future. Um, my cats are already banging at my front window to get let in. So I gotta spend some time with the babies.
Oh yeah, I know how that is. I got to do that, and hell, I got to go have some dinner and spend time with the wife.
And there you go.
All
But
right.
yeah, always fun to chat with you. Um, I'll say my pitch first. If you're watching this, please give it a like. Comment below the video. If you ever have any questions, throw a question down there as well. Um, Share the video if you really like it. Share it with your friends on Twitter, Facebook, and all that. And finally, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm shooting for 1,000, and I'm 819 at the moment. So slowly getting there. And yeah, I hope you like what I produce here. I guess I'm coming up on 600 videos now. So I have a lot of back content you can check out. Lots of creator hangouts, old Studio Synergy. Me and that guy Jeff Lafferty started the Artcast on my channel, so you can check out those episodes. And yeah, just lots of stuff. And obviously, go check out Morningstar with Jeremy.
Yep. Go to jeremy.net's my homepage. It has links to my channel and all my other social media. And as Peter said, he put links in the description, so you can check it out there. But I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I got a Patreon. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. And you can pick up physical copies of Morningstar at amazon.jeremy.net.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll be back. I don't know when, but soon. And as always, I hope you're working on your comics.